Hey there, this is a video tour of our food forest. We moved here 4 years ago, and there were some citrus trees, there was a peach tree, not much else, and a lot of exposed earth, which we then mulched for a good couple years and grew ground cover crops and fava beans and whatnot. And here we are 4 years later. There's more trees, there's more perennials, there's more full-grown trees as well. And we kind of follow the principles of permaculture a little bit, zoning things, putting things that we need, that you use the most, closer to the house, zone 1. And then as you move further out, either maybe it's something that's a larger scale that you don't want near the house, or something you don't use as much, like bamboo and comfrey and whatnot. So we'll start in zone 1 on this beautiful day in the month of May with our assistant Gozo here. Hey, buddy. This edge is a southwest edge, and it gets blasted with light. So we have a lot of drought tolerant stuff. We have a lot of lavender. We have a lot of succulents and cactus and stuff like that, and we love it because things, flower and blossom at different times of the year. Like the cactus will blossom in the winter time. Lavender is going right now, which is just gorgeous, and it's near the entrance to the house, so it's a beautiful thing to see. This is Palos Verdes, also known as desert museum tree, which is just covered in these yellow flowers in the month of May. Yeah, the light bounces off these and into our dining room, turns the whole dining room this beautiful yellow color. It's amazing. This we'll come back to a little later. It's a pineapple guava blossom. And this tree is just like from another planet. I really love it. But part of what I really learned from permaculture class I took is putting things in the right place, like figuring out where to put them, like sun, wind, shade, temperature, that kind of thing. And these are our tomato planters, and this is a good example of like something I've had trouble growing in the past, so I want to control as many of the variables as possible. So I'm using these big planters where I can control the soil and nutrients and compost tea and whatnot, and also move them if they're getting too blasted by the sun or they're not getting enough sun. These planters are on wheels. So these tomato plants, there's like 4 in total in 2 175-gallon planters. Tomato plants grow huge. Here's a volunteer fig tree emerging. That probably came from the compost. And over here to the far right we have sun golds, which in Zone 10, California, people might probably familiar with them. They're absolutely delicious, and they provide all summer long. Cherry tomato that are orange in color, just delicious. We have vintage wine, champion heirloom, and early boy, and this is sort of later in May, mid-May. Looking at them, things I've always had problems with, like moisture levels for tomatoes, like either overwatering or underwatering, and it's a mystery to me still. But this year it looks pretty good so far. I have some rosemary mixed into this into this planter. And this is probably an early boy, starting to emerge mid-May. And here we have what I believe are the champion heirlooms. And vintage wine, which have this, when they're green, they look dehydrated. They have this scrunched up look, but I believe that is a good sign. That's what they look like. Here we are later in May and the sun golds are starting to ripen enough that we can now start snacking on them, which I'm going to do. And we'll get like a little bowl full, you know, every few days, and then by mid-June it's like there are just a ton of them, and we let them sit and sweeten even more on the vine and make a sauce. Look how juicy these are. So there's, you know, they're useful even when they start drying out. And here we have on the ground, we have a bed of like mint and sweet potato leaves, you can see, and mulch. And this is early in May. This is like middle of May. You can see these other leaves propping up. That's turmeric coming up that we've had there for a few years. Now here's early June, turmeric fully gaining speed. Look at these leaves, beautiful. Here's the mint. I like mint as it's so invasive, but I like it better than crabgrass, so it helps beat the battle. And this is a red bell pepper plant, and maybe not the best place to plant it, but it seems to be chugging along. There's some aloe. All right, in this whiskey barrel over here, we have more sun golds. You can never have enough of those. You want to kind of plant them strategically in the garden, so wherever you're walking you can grab a couple and throw them in your mouth. This is purple collard, which is a great perennial to have. Goji berry, which I've never successfully had any berries yet, but they say it takes a few years. Siri just thought I asked something. Weird. Yeah, purple collard is great perennial. You can keep cutting it and transplanting it all over the place. You can grow it, train it up, or however you like. And it's super nutritious, super healthy. Here's a little bounty from our sun golds, beginning of June. It's starting to speed up. A little cat next door. Cats love our garden. They like just graze in the sunshine. This is an experiment we tried this year. We put zucchini next to cantaloupe next to cucumber. So we'll see how that goes. And this is the purple collard that I've had trained up. So now I can just like stand and kind of cut my greens. Here we have this is the cucumber plant, which is a lot more invasive than the cucumber and the cantaloupe, and I would have to say the zucchini is picking up steam right now too. I know these might not have been smart to put these three together, but it's an experiment. This is the zucchini beginning of May, and then here it is kind of the middle of May. You can see the blossoms and the fruit, and then here it is early June, and I think I should have left this one on the vine, but I wanted to take it off and eat one anyway. And here's the mess of cucumber vines, and here's a blossom, future cucumber, just providing this little structure, this little triangular structure for it to climb and help support the weight of the cucumbers so they don't all touch the ground. They're not bad when they touch the ground. You just have to be a little more careful with those. Like this one's an ideal one. Running up here, little guy, you can see the little yellow blossom at the end. Here's one on the ground, totally fine, sitting on some mulch and compost. Here it is mid-May, and here it is beginning of June. Just pull it off. It looks pretty damn good. Really nice color. These are really tasty. We've already had one. Here's some progress on the other one. Now here's the pineapple guava trio we were looking at earlier. Just a gorgeous tree to have. These are the blossoms that turn into the pineapple guava fruit, and that fruit, if you taste it. It's reminiscent of like sour candy. It's like where they invented sour candy taste from. The tree itself is just gorgeous. It's like these blue-green leaves, which have this kind of matte quality to them. I mean, these blossoms are just like from another planet. It's insanely gorgeous, and I love the sort of the multi-branch growth structure of this tree. We'll look at the wood here. It's this beautiful red kind of wood. The bark is beautiful. Look at this multi-branch stuff. And then sitting in a bed of like root beer plant, which is those big green plants which you find in Asian and Latin American cuisine. They use as like a wrap. And now we're going to talk a little bit about this banana grove that we have going, that we started only probably 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. Our neighbor gave us a little pup, and now 2.5 years later, I believe this is one of 4 flowers we currently have going, which is insane. We're going to be distributing bananas very soon to the neighbors and friends, and freezing and making banana breads. I mean, this is like, we don't buy bananas all year round because these flowers happen at random times in the summer in zone 10, and then also in the winter. We've had them ripen in December. There's just no telling. Like right now we have 4 that are probably going to start ripening at the same time, which is kind of insane. But what we do is we peel them and throw them into 1-gallon Ziploc bags, and then you freeze those, and then you have basically bananas for your smoothies and baking, and banana ice cream for eons, or for the year. Now you can see this is like mid-May, starting to really ripen. I'm going to take one of these off and show you guys inside, but they are absolutely delicious. You know, they're not the Cavendish ones, obviously, but they're the smaller ones, but they are delicious and creamy, and they have like this nice, subtle citrus kind of kick to them. Really delicious. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that bananas are actually part of the herb family? They are not a tree. They are a herb. What do you think of that, Gozo? This is our a look inside of our 12x4 raised bed. Over here we have some red beets from last year left over. Not sure how good those are going to be. Yeah, those don't look like they'd be too promising. Some gold beets over here. These look like they might be better. More promising, but also leftover from last year, so I'm not sure. When that's happened before, we usually get these little stunted things. But sometimes you can luck out. Here's some cilantro. I try to plug this in different times in different beds throughout the season, since they're always bolting. A red bell pepper plant left over from last year. We'll see what we get from it. Some things that are probably not supposed to be perennial, we treat that way because we don't replant. They just survive. This is broccolini. Now I'm not sure why we've never been able to get really nice big heads from the broccolini. This is as big as we get before they start flowering. So maybe it's like lack of phosphorus or something, or too much nitrogen. I don't know. If you know, you have some wizarding about that, let me know in the comments. Some carrots surrounding this flower here is really beautiful. I think it ended up being a weed. We ended up pulling it out. And okay, deeper over here we have tarragon. Over here, that flowered as well. Everything flowers on this end. This end gets pounded with light. This is like a red cabbage that's being eaten by caterpillars. It's a war zone in here, folks. Okay, and then a cayenne pepper plant, which looks really healthy and happy. So that's why I started planting pepper plants over here, because they seem to be doing well. This is jalapeno, and I think pepper plants like this kind of climate versus like broccolini or cilantro or cabbage. Marigolds, it's always fun to have those. And Gozo wants us to go check out the greens box, which is a 4x8 bed, 2 feet deep, which is now sunken by about a foot from compost. We've got kale, dinosaur kale, red kale, curly kale, and bush beans. We don't have a lot of quantities of everything, but we have a lot of variety of things because we're definitely in the exploratory phase of our gardening career, I guess you'd say. This is cilantro that's like gone to flower, and as you know, once it goes to seed, you can use those seeds and grind them down and get yourself some fresh coriander. And here's our Swiss chard. This we love. It looks like it's been trying to go to flower, and it's been actually flowering a couple times. We've been getting some really hot days, so it's probably near the end of its cycle. And here's the bush beans again, beginning of June, and just do like a little mini harvest, but this will be like cut up and put it with some other vegetables. This will be like a side dish. Absolutely delicious. Here is our beloved apple tree. This was growing on the property when we got here. You can see it's in blossoming phase at early May. Very sticky branches, not a lot of leaves. Now here we are, middle of May. You can see the leaves like springing out to like protect the blossom, and it's starting to get a little more green on the tree. See more dense leaf over here. Here are the blossoms post flower phase. Just gorgeous. And these apples, we've been getting full-size apples for 2 years now, and it's amazing. Here they are in the beginning of June. You can see they're starting to fruit. The flowers now turned into fruit. And here is the leaf coverage beginning of June. So it's a pretty dramatic, actually, month for the apple tree. Here's the fruit kind of midway, and then a close-up of the fruit. Delicious. What's up, Gozo? The peaches? Oh yeah, peach tree. This peach tree came. This already existed on the property when we bought the house 4 years ago. So this is a pretty mature peach tree. Every year we get hundreds and hundreds of peaches. A friend of mine who's a native Californian said these are called melting flesh peaches. She thinks these are called melting flesh peaches. I'm not 100% sure, but they are delicious, and when they ripen, they're very, very soft, and they don't have a crazy shelf life. Like, we bring them in and you don't eat them that day, then the next day they're just like, super, super soft. But we distribute these to our friends and neighbors, and we freeze a bunch, and we make crumbles, we make jams. We've done it all. Believe me, by the time mid-June comes, we don't ever want to see another peach. And I'm going to show you, this is sort of middle of May. This is like the perfect time to be eating them right off the tree. Give you an example of just how delicious and juicy they are. The smell is absolutely amazing. It's like, the same intensity as when jasmine is blooming, and you're just like in a peach world. Now we're going to talk about moringa trees, which I have a bunch across the property, and this tree is really An amazing, amazing tree. It grows, not only does it, the leaves, like if you harvest the leaves, you can throw them, you can just eat them raw, basically. You can throw them in your smoothie, you can dry them and ground them down to a powder. You've probably seen this in the grocery store in capsules or in tea form. But basically it has lots of antioxidants and more vitamin C than oranges, more protein than a serving of yogurt. And it grows these fruits that they call, like these bean pods that they call drumsticks. And so another word for this tree is the drumstick tree. And this pod is definitely past due. This is probably from the fall, but look at the seeds. The seeds are just amazing. They're like little space capsules. Little future explorers, future trees right here. When they are fresh, these bean pods can be cooked and eaten. I haven't tried them yet, but I want to. You can see we prune them pretty hard here, just like top them, and that's partially because they grow really spindly. They do like 8 feet in one season, so they grow real spindly really quickly. So I kind of top them above head height so they can create a denser canopy above us. Now surrounding the moringa tree I have Russian comfrey, which is an amazing plant to have. Use it for your fertilization needs. Make comfrey teas, which I'll have a video on. Try and pull back and get a wider shot of the moringa tree, but with the moringa tree you can even chop and drop like around other trees, and the growth hormone is so powerful in the moringa that it'll get other plants growing like crazy. So if you are in zone 10, actually this tree grows in so many zones, you should definitely check it out. That's why they call it the miracle tree, moringa. We have 3 of these trees and they're scattered throughout the yard. They're great. And this here is our little patch of artichokes, which we love to eat. The wife makes an amazing garlic dip for these, and we just go nuts. But then for the ones that we don't end up catching before they open and flower, they just become beautiful flowers, which you can't be mad at. Here's an example of one that's kind of past due in terms of eating. Great little home for creatures. Our neighbors had some already flowering, so you can take a look. Just the most intense, amazing purple. Speaking of purple, we have our eggplant patch over here, which kind of carryovers from last year. Again, like things like this end up being perennials in our yard. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it seems to be producing nice fruit. There's 2 varieties of eggplants here. We've got the classic emoticon one right here, early May, fruiting, which we love. Roast this. You can like put slits in it and stuff garlic inside of it and then roast it in the oven. It's absolutely delicious. And then here it is, the other variety. It's like more like a eggplant berry, and that's about full size, and they'll get like little bushels of those, and those are delicious too. This is another one of the classic ones. And here it is towards the end of May. And here's this little island of plants and trees, a little guild. We start with the curry tree. The curry leaf is not the same as curry powder. Curry powder is made of a bunch of different spices, but curry leaf in itself has a smoky citrus flavor that's amazing in cooking. Here's the flower, which is also very beautiful. It's a beautiful tree to have, even if you don't use the leaves very often, like a bay leaf kind of thing. And then to the right here we have these heart-shaped leaves. It's the goldenberry bush, which took off nicely this year. Pretty happy about it. Produces these little tomatillo pouches, and inside is the berry. And this is another moringa tree we have in this little island, this little guild of plants. Golden berries, I'm super excited this year because we'll have more than the 3 or 4 that we had last year, looks like. And it produces these perfect little spheres inside those little pouches. I'll show you right here. It's actually part of the nightshade family and related to the tomatillo. It's also known as the Peruvian ground cherry, and it's got a very sweet, delicious taste to it. Chock full of antioxidants, actually vitamin C, protein, phosphorus, just amazing. This is longevity spinach, also known as Gynera procubin, which is a perennial spinach. It's a little thicker than your regular store-bought spinach, but it is even more healthy and even more loaded with vitamins and calcium. And these are the flowers. How can you not grow this perennial in your garden? This is our jujube bush. Jujubes we've been slowly getting into. We're not 100% into it yet, but we'll see this year. It's a beautiful bush. And grapes, this is our lollipop grapevine that we just planted this year. So this is like sort of later in May. You can see the flowers now turn to fruit. And I'm going to show you, here it is even later in May. Getting there. It's like raisins first, and then grapes, and then back to raisins. And then here we are, early June. These are starting to really look like proper grapes. Yeah, this zone is like basically the same as Mediterranean climate. So, you know, grapes, figs, avocados, citrus. Here's our lime tree. We also have all-in-one almond tree. This is a very young tree. We only get about 4 almonds a year. So, and then here's our last raised bed. It's devoted to berries. These, I believe, are our blackberries, which are getting close. We have raspberries, strawberries, blueberries we've never been successful at growing, and then these could be boysen or elderberry. I forget, there's like one other berry that we're growing in here. And the strawberries are the kind of the ground cover for the berry box, and they have their time sort of in the winter when the berries are not as prolific, the blackberries are not as prolific. But this is the May, June is like blackberry time. They go nuts. They are just covering everything. We have to keep them in check. They are delicious, and we'll get like a bowl a week. This is the Kaboka fig tree. It was also on the property when we first moved here, and it was kind of growing out in a bush-like pattern and quite huge actually on the property. You can see here it's almost 20 feet in diameter. We're definitely going to be trimming this back in, trying to promote it to grow vertically rather than horizontally. But the figs are delicious. They're the green figs, not like the Mission where they go dark. And this is also a fig I pulled too early. You can tell with the Kaboka figs because they release this like milky substance. But the ready fig won't look much, you know, darker than this when it's all done. We're trying to train it to grow vertically rather than horizontally. There used to be an avocado tree a really old avocado tree in the center, which is why maybe it was growing horizontally around it. But now that it's gone, it's starting to go vertical. And one of the cool things is you'll find figs at different stages. I mean, definitely in the spring summer months you'll find this. In the winter, the tree loses all its leaves, and these leaves are like solid gold for your composter. Just giant sheets of carbon or nitrogen, depending on when you use them. This is our loquat tree. This year it didn't fruit, but it did grow a lot more branches, and leaves look really healthy and beautiful. I did go to a neighbor's garden to shoot this. Here's some fruits on their loquat tree. Look at that loquat tree. It's just gorgeous, huge. This is our strawberry guava bush, and here are the strawberry guava blossoms. This we've gotten more into since we discovered a food mill, because it's a very seedy fruit, but it has a very tropical strawberry taste to it. I like it. And this is our olive tree. It's the arbequina, which is kind of a mix of the green and dark purple olives. Last year we had enough to do 2 jars, and it was the first time we've ever brined olives, and it's surprisingly easy and delicious that we now have these olives in the fridge. It's our papaya tree, which is now probably year 2. Beautiful looking tree, and the fruit is delicious, the green papaya. This is our dwarf pomegranate tree, which I believe is setting fruit here. Here's our asparagus bed. A friend planted these. I believe these crowns were about 2 or 3 years old, which I think after 3 years you can start eating them. And I left these as is. I let them fern out just because it was year 1, so I don't know if that was a good thing to do or not. Sunflowers, we have tons of sunflowers on the property, and they come back every year because they kind of grow, sprout, and then seed themselves when they come crashing down. And I usually, once they dry up, I mulch the stalks, and I mulch that whole area that they're in. And they're known to filter soil. It's a very healthy thing to grow in your garden, and they look beautiful. And beauty is a vector, as they say in permaculture. You can hear the train in the background. Bougainvillea. If you're in zone 10, probably very familiar with this. Just a gorgeous vine. I don't know too much about it, and I know I'm not probably doing a good job on training it, but it was a struggle just the last few years to get it to grow. So what you're seeing right now is like the kind of fruits of that struggle. Like, finally got it growing, but now like what? It looks crazy. And bamboo, gold bamboo, super handy to have, because you can just cut these and make trellises and temporary trellises, and not have to, constantly buy all these like wooden stakes and metal stakes and stuff. Just a handy thing to have. Like, super fast growing. Zone 10, we're very familiar with this site, which is the fire department. Nearby, there's a park that's burning currently, and so that's what this is a response to. You can see the smoke kind of coming up. What do you think, Gozo? Is it going to be okay? Anyway, thanks very much for joining me on this garden tour. If you made it this far, you're kind of crazy, or you're like related to me. I hope it wasn't too long-winded, but this hopefully gives you a good idea of what we got going in our food forest, and inspire you to grow and do the same. All right, everyone, be safe, and cheers.